To put it bluntly.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 13 of To Put It Bluntly. I am the Wobbly Gamer and as always I am joined by my fantabulous co-host.
Repping the Dragon Cog merchandise. Not available anywhere else yet. We'll see. I'm Cameron Keywood and we are joined by a very special guest who will now introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Harriet. I am a games accessibility and inclusion consultant on all-around gobby povvo from the north.
I couldn't describe you better myself. So Harriet is I would like to say, a good friend of mine and Cameron's. The accessibility space is quite small. You may have realised 13 episodes in, so we do all know each other and do tend to meet up at events. And Harriet is one of them ones that you always come across at events. She, safe to say, as she said, makes herself known, but she is also a very nice person. And I can only say one nice thing about her this episode, and that is it. So that's that box ticked. I'm going to be back to our normal relationship status. And how's everyone's week been? It's been a quiet week for myself. I have been mainly playing Call of Duty Black Ops 6 because that came out on Friday, and it's now Wednesday, the following Wednesday.
Yep.
And I'm very much enjoying that.
It does look good. I put out a tweet because I like single player. I do not like multiplayer because I'm shit at it mostly. I wish they do like a separate thing where they have a single player, multiplayer, and zombies, and you can buy them separately in packs.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea, you know.
Yeah, Treyarch Activision, I'm available. Just so. Yeah, I've had a weird week. Facebook dating has probably been. He's already off because he knows what I'm on about. So I've just been scouring on Facebook dating, and boy, oh boy. Wow. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of interesting things on there.
Cameron,
a lot of interesting
people.
They're
called females. They're not things.
Excuse me. Do you know we're looking at men as well? Come on now, inclusive. Anyway, yeah. A lot. I was going to say. I'm going to say there's a lot of Nigerian women on there, right? Nothing to do, you know. And I'm sure I'm not being thing, but I'm sure when they were born, their parents just looked at a dictionary and pointed at a random word. There was one called victory, one called success. You know, positive words. Princess. Well, then again, I've seen that one around by me. And then there was one that what was it called? Baby Jewel or something. I've literally sent like Wobbles like probably about 100 different people.
Yeah.
With like funny comments. Gonna get a TikTok going eventually, but yeah, Facebook dating and becoming the newest Wobbly Gamer mod. Not much really this week so far. How about you, Harriet? What have you been up to this week?
Mostly getting ready for the Impact cohort announcement stuff. And then Monday, Tuesday was GA-Conf US. So in the Minicat Studio server, we did like a watch party, so we could feel like it is when you actually go there, when you're on a table with a bunch of people and you're just sort of like chatting in between talks. It was a lot like that, but online, and it worked really well. And yeah, it's mostly just that. I've reinstalled Factorio because the new DLC came out. And if there was ever a diagnostic for autism, it would be my love for Factorio. It just makes my brain happy. That's pretty much it. I'm just very tired at the moment because winter puts me in hibernation mode. I'm great 9 months of the year, not great 3 months of the year, and I'm fine with that balance.
No, that's I'm currently sat in massive fluffy socks trying to keep myself warm because I have the same issue in winter for 3 months of the year. I hate it, but other than that, we're good. So, as we've said, we are obviously joined by Harriet, and Harriet's kind of one of the pillars of the accessibility community. Everyone knows her. Most people have good things to say about her.
Yeah.
How did you get here, Harriet? Let's go with the old cliche question. What's your accessibility journey?
Necessity. As I mentioned, I am a disgusting, dirty povvo northerner. South of the north, as Chris from Many Cats will consistently remind me that of the north, I'm from the southern area, and I'm like, that we're getting complicated there. It's the rivalry from the east and the west. But yeah, like I didn't know accessibility was ever going to be a thing I did or needed or anything like that. I grew up in one of the poorest areas in the northwest near the Wirral Peninsula, in what I call the arsehole of the northwest. It's like the bum crack between Liverpool and the Wirral and the little sphincter. That's where my hometown is. And you know, you're born in a sphincter, your life will be a sphincter. That is how things go. And I ended up escaping, doing lots of different things. All over the place. I've been like an au pair. I've worked in like retail opticians and things like that, retail customer service. I have done all sorts of jobs. And it wasn't till I ended up going to college as a mature student doing graphic design and like advertising, marketing, that side of graphic design. And then I found this games course that was like, you don't need to have UCAS points to come here as a mature student. And I'm like, well, I'm applying for that. Went to uni on this 2-year fast track course. So that's 3 years of a degree in a 2-year period. You don't get summers off. And then did a master's, and it was actually, I got into the accessibility in my first year of uni when we were doing like user UX module. And I first saw an article from Ian Hamilton in, I think it was MCV, because we used to get the magazines delivered to the uni, and that was it. I started to get into it through that. Like my journey in terms of like game dev stuff was I started out doing art, ended up doing like production and design, and then got into like accessibility through that. And I've been doing it ever since. Like any opportunities that stepped up. My first public speaking was at EG-X 2018, I think it must have been. My first public speaking thing, and that was where I first met Chris from Many Cats, where he did a call out on Twitter, which that's what I will call it. I don't care.
It shall always be known as Twitter.
It's always going to be that. You can't mess around with branding. And yeah, it just came on from there. And so I ended up leveraging, like, as a disabled person, I have a lot going on in terms of diagnoses and how they all connect with each other, like, you know, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, plenty of little neurodivergent conditions that all coalesce into one sort of neurotype that defies all logic and meaning at any given point in time. And I just didn't want people to have to feel the way I did when I played games where I'm like, I can't play this. So now, even though there is a reality that there are some games I just won't be able to play, even with accessibility features, I want to help people make games that people can play. And help them be empowered to like make design decisions and not worry too much and just let them be creative with it. Like, I think accessibility makes things creative. You know, you think of games of the past and how innovative they used to be because of limitations. And yeah, and I leverage being, you know, I am, as you both know from seeing me in person, I'm a giant person. With a weirdly little voice, considering my size, and in recent years I started to use that voice loudly and a lot bigger, and I talk a lot about like neuronormativity and neurodiversity and how we can improve communication, disability inclusion in the workplace, because everyone likes to have a safe place to work, especially disabled people who are underemployed, and yeah,
I think, yeah,
it's been a windy journey.
It's a very windy journey, but I listened to one of your DEI talks, and I think you put it so straightforward.
Bluntly, you could say.
Yeah, well done, Cameron. you fall off the same branch of that I do, where it's like you just throw it at them and don't hold back, but you do it professionally.
Yeah.
It's
well, I describe it as meeting people where they are. Like, I'm not gonna tell people like, oh my god, you're doing it wrong. You should probably like unsubscribe from life because you're not doing accessibility enough. You're such a bad person. Which is a common thread that there is sometimes with people where they're like, you're a bad person if you don't do this. Whereas I'm like, you are a creative person. You can use this to be more creative. Like, even with different disciplines and things like that, there are different. The advantage of my education and the way that it was structured means that I have an understanding of different disciplines and how they work and the motive. In fact, that was my my master's dissertation was on motivation factors on a development team. So how, you know, like programmers are motivated, how designers are motivated, how artists are motivated. Like, how do you motivate different disciplines to do their best work without burning out and making some extreme choices? Like, how do you have like a ethically productive team in a capitalist environment? Yay.
Yeah.
So it's like that with everything. You just got to approach people where they are and figure out a way to communicate in a language that they understand and can use to be better at their job.
Yeah, that's hit the nail on the head there. So just to roll back, you've mentioned like many cats a couple of times in the
Mhm.
Impact campaign. Do you want to like clarify that for the 5 people
Yeah.
listening?
Well, basically, I do a lot of volunteer work. I volunteer at Many Cats as the project lead for the Impact campaign, which is something we started last year. I originally started as a project assistant, but that gobbiness, you know, cream rises to the top and all that. Yeah. And it just ended up being the thing, and it's been fantastic. Very stressful sometimes, but it's necessary to show that there are disabled and neurodivergent people working in the games industry already. A lot of things that I've heard as a consultant is like, oh, if we knew there was more disabled people, we'd be able to do a lot better job. And it's like, well, no, actually, you need to have a classy thing called empathy. And the disabled people are already working in your studio, it's just they're not telling you because you'll fire them and you say that you won't, but you probably will. You just don't realise that's why you're doing it. Because there's lots of different ways we create, you know, hostile work environments with disabled people. And so that's what Impact is. We're in our 2nd year, and that's due to be like Many Cats. All the work they do is on like empowering disabled people in the games industry. We have a list of like consultant experts, so to allow them to get work and be seen. That list gets passed around all sorts of AAA studios. We know this, and it's fantastic. And it's a lot of fun. We get to connect people up.
That list is
And
also
yeah,
free and available, and I'm going to give
yes.
Cameron some work. Can we post
It's in the
that
dump, yeah.
in the
It's in
dump?
the dump. It's in
Cheers,
the dump.
Cam.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's
The other volunteer work I do is I work with Cam on the accessibility team at Limit Break, where I, for some unknown reason, am the lead. Where we're doing some interesting stuff where we're trying to like look at what is currently my pet peeve, and we'll talk about that with the EG-X stuff, which is accessible events. So we're looking at how we can make events more accessible for disabled people, especially in the games industry, because events are not accessible.
So with Limit Break, Harry, how did you come about like leading the accessibility side of things? Because
it was interesting actually. So Many Cats were actually consulted a couple of years ago basically on their accessibility, and then basically it was suggested that I think it was someone had pitched it to the lead team that they needed a team for accessibility if they were officially opening it up to disabled people specifically, rather than just, you know, taking it into account, that they'd need a team to sort of manage and mitigate that. So yeah, I would like went through the process. I applied, had a couple of chats with different leads and things like that. I sort of gave them a pitch on what I thought I could do with it. And I said, honestly, we were basically creating the future because there's nothing like this. I mean, comes we talk about it before. Mentorship stuff is usually, how do you mentor a disabled person? You angel, you.
yeah.
Right? There is so there is next to zero, in fact, probably zero information on if you're disabled, how do you mentor somebody who's not disabled or someone else who's disabled or someone who's disabled and not like you. There's nothing, because the idea that a disabled person would do that, it doesn't enter into the mindset of people in the sort of mentorship sphere. So there's a lot of improvements and things like that that we've been looking at. I spent my first year basically analysing everything, like looking at how Limit Break worked and looking at areas that would need improvement and would be the sort of easiest wins for improving the accessibility, which was, for us, it was like setting up an accessibility email address so people can email if there's something we don't provide. We have a accessibility policy, which is not actually required by law, unless you are a charity or a government organisation or public sector. But we're Limit Break's a community interest company. And I was like, we should still have one. I think it's a good practice, and it'll show the industry that they should also have one too.
100%.
And all the accessibility policy is a list of what we are able to provide in terms of the accessibility and outlining where barriers are likely to occur. So, for example, we can control a certain degree of accessibility on, say, like Slack or Discord, but there's a certain point where that stops because we can't change Discord. Like, it inherently has its own
flaws,
like systems and programming and barriers. And then we've been doing it's basically just a spreadsheet where we track the different areas of accessibility for events. It's the first year we're doing that, so some of the stats are not ideal, but it's about growth. It's about starting somewhere and then growing from there and looking at where we can improve things and then showing that data to the industry and being like, look, we can do it and none of us are paid. You can do it and pay people.
So we did have like a couple of issues earlier in the year with I think somebody complained or something and they wanted everyone freedom of information request.
So yeah, there's a few different challenges with having an organisation where the majority of people in it are volunteers.
Yeah.
Especially when it is something so big as Limit Break. We have similar even with like Impact, we have similar challenges where it's a lot of it is the expectation. And like people will like, especially when it's in the disability sphere, they will complain because they can't help but assume that the people they're about to deal with are able-bodied and have no innate intimate understanding of disability and the barriers that occur. So a lot of time you do get a bit of the bite in the hand that feeds you sometimes, and it just comes part and parcel. It's the reason why there's a lot more abuse of disabled people by disabled people in the accessibility sphere at the moment, is because the further we progress, the higher the expectations for what we're able to actually achieve reasonably. It's a good thing but a horrible thing at the same time. Like, if you are doing good, you are going to get complaints from the very demographic you're trying to support and help.
I've noticed that in the last few months, especially more on certain social media platforms that have gone to the shit. And it's disheartening as advocates when you see, like, I've had a bit but nothing horrendous, but when you see someone get attacked for the work they're doing because they're proud of the work they're doing, that's the bit where I really have to bite my teeth and not go in two-footed, call someone a see you next Tuesday on social media and smash them over the head, threaten to smash them over the head with a keyboard. It's quite hard for me to remain level-headed, to say the least, because I'm quite fiery when it comes to things like that, because watching people get shat on from those they're trying to help is the one thing that makes zero sense to me. Yeah,
like we did have an issue earlier in the year, but that's like since then it's been fine and everyone has been pretty much like and some people even thrived, I thought, with like the help that's been given. So like roll on Limit Break for next year.
Yeah, it's always interesting seeing how things change, especially like obviously my focus is always on like the disability sphere and the inclusion factors of that. Seeing the progress that can be made on a grassroots level, it's kind of a funny thing that happens with like many cats is I think people think because of what we do that we A, have money, and B, do a lot more. But it's part of like presence and the ironically impact of what something does. That has a bearing. I think it's the same with like sometimes the same with limit break. There can be sometimes assumptions about what something is. Actually, one of the we did a little mini sort of the leads did a little mini sort of training with Dan Thomas, who's one of the senior folks in limit break. Like he's
my ex mentor from last year. Yeah,
he did a great session on managing expectations and stuff. As leads, we tend to be very passionate and we tend to do things because we want it to be the best. And in reality, we're doing above and beyond what limit break the minimum product is, essentially. Like the minimum sort of like what is limit break? It's a mentorship scheme for underrepresented groups. That's it. Everything else is like a bonus. So it was stuff like that is knowing like actually we are doing above and beyond what is expected for these kinds of things. Like, you know, impact, we have no money. Like sponsorship is not a priority for us. There is plenty that we can do without money. And we're just managing that and the expectations of that carefully. Because all disabled volunteers who have jobs and other things to be doing as well. So this is all like in their spare time. And just making sure like it's similar to limit break in many ways with impact, is just providing that connection. Like I have complete like megalomaniacal world domination goals with impact. Like dream end goal is lobbying government, right? Like knocking up at number 10 and being like, what are you doing to make the games industry not pull a Cloud Imperium? You know, like what are you doing in this sort of thing? As it is, it's small scale, but we will scale up. It's only year 2 for impact. And I am lucky to be able to learn a lot from my work in Limit Break as to how to run a volunteer organisation, you know, how to help the volunteers, what kind of work you can get from someone where they're volunteering their time, because you can't ask them to give more than they can because it's a volunteer role. As soon as you start asking for more than that, you should be paying them.
No, I was going to ask, have you had any industry roles other than what you've done volunteering and your accessibility? Because I know you've got the degree in games design, and I know you said you've done art. Let's have a little breakdown on what Harriet's done inside the industry as an employed person by game studios.
So, employed by game studios, my first job out of uni absolutely humbled the absolute fuck out of me. I came out of university with the arrogance only autism can give you. Right? That kind of thing. Like, I am so shit hot as a producer. I'm gonna go into this company and they will not know what hit them. Oh boy, I did not make it out through probation, let me tell you. I didn't know how to articulate myself. I was not socialized well enough, and that was my first and last time I was employed salaried role with a games company, because it basically was like, oh wow. It was good to learn that what I knew was actually important. You know, like, okay, I do actually have the knowledge, but in that situation, there was so much other stuff that I didn't know would be going on in the workplace, like the social politics and things like that. I did not know about any of it. So yeah, I mean, before that I was freelance. I was teaching Blender to people in Second Life for nearly a decade. Because the middle-aged ladies, they want to make sexy outfits for their sex avatars, so I will teach them how to make it.
God's work.
Exactly, I'm doing the Lord's work.
That was not the sentence I was expecting to have in today's episode.
You're welcome for all of that, I'll be honest.
That's the thumbnail sorted.
Unexpected. But it's I've had plenty of other jobs outside games, because I am not because that job humbled me. I am not too proud to be like, right, I need a part-time job in retail or whatever. I need to be able to support what I do.
Yeah.
Because obviously accessibility consultancy does not pay stably, regularly enough for it to constitute like, oh well, this is my full-time job. So like, I'll work retail for a bit until I get my feet on the ground. I'm too poor to give a crap about shame when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
That's shaming people for having a non-games job is a middle-class person's job thing. Like, that's not for poor people.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it. And it's just been occasional solo projects. I'm trying to find time to work on a personal project. Like, I self-teach everything. Like, I do Unreal blueprints and stuff like that, because if Palworld can make a commercially successful game using blueprints, anyone can.
That's what they told us
Don't
really
let
in
any
my uni.
programmers tell you that blueprints aren't real programming. They're just terrified.
So, I think that's quite a good time to move on to the second part of the episode. So we'll be back ever so shortly with today's special patch notes with regards to EGX and accessible gaming events in general.
Hello everyone, we are back after a short intermission, as they would say in the theatre. This is Patch Notes, where we usually talk about the recent gaming news and where there has been a lot of gaming news. I think everyone here wanted to talk about a certain event that happened this past weekend, EGX. Last year, 2023, I believe we all give talks at EGX. We were all part of panels.
Involved in talks or were part of panels?
Yeah.
Yes.
So none of us went this time because it has merged with Comic-Con, and yeah, that's. I believe Harriet has a lot to say about it, so I'll start with Wobbles first. What do you think?
I'm going to start with the pre-accessibility and pre-ticket stuff. I'll let Harriet probably destroy the actual show itself. But I applied for both all passes I could. Industry pass, content creator pass. Denied for both. Absolutely fine for the content creator one. Wasn't expecting the content creator one because I'm quite small. Industry pass, however, no reason whatsoever that I should have been denied. I know people that have got more experience than me in the industry, also denied. And also, I don't know if you've tried, Harriet, but trying to apply for a companion is freaking ridiculous. You need to apply to them to then apply to get a pass from another company. To that company, you have to prove you're disabled. It's not just like, well, here's a picture of my CIV or whatever, my certificate of vision impairment done. It's you need to go to another company who would like to know what PIP rate you're on, who would like to know this, who would like to know that. It's all a load of shit. And it bugs me to absolute death. Because I don't have 6 people that are always with me, because I have friends that have lives. I have family that can't always come to events. The people that come to events with me change every bloody event at the moment, because everyone goes to different events. I can't have a list of 6 people that go to events with me, because sometimes it'll be Cameron. Sometimes it'll be someone else I know. Sometimes it'll be a friend. Sometimes it's my sister. Sometimes it's my wife. It's not like Stonewall set in gold that I have a personal assistant that comes to events with me. And that process to get one a ticket and second a companion ticket is just horse shit this year. And everyone I know was rejected for industry. Everyone I know was rejected for content creators pass. But I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get some hate, but if you're wearing a furry costume, you got straight in the door. Because it was all about Comic-Con.
So from the reports I've had from pals who went, and some brief research I did to find out how things had improved, there were some improvements over last year. So my thing with events, I've been going to, like, let's call them geek cons in this country, in England, since they started. Okay, since I was a little teenager. Well, late teens, early 20s, like. You know, I'm trying to.
I can't imagine them in Victorian times. That's weird.
I will find that you are at events I'm at. You will not survive.
I've got his address.
I've got yours as well.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not above. It can only be charged as murder if the evidence is found. So yeah, like I've been going to the event since. In fact, I've been going to what is now MCN when it used to be called the London Expo, like MCN London Expo, like 2001. So you're talking like 20 odd years ago. I was going to events, right? They have not been accessible the whole time. They've had like 20 years to figure this out. There are laws regarding the size of a venue and the accessibility provisions that must be provided. The NEC Birmingham has always been really good about that, right? The Excel Centre has not. It has never been good about that in the 20 odd years that I've been going to cons on and off at that location. The fact that they rely on the venue to provide all the accessibility is a huge problem, because you can't rely on a venue. If you want your event to be accessible, you have to do that. You have to make them do it. You can't just rely on what they've got. They did improve by adding priority seating on some of the tables, but it just had a sticker on the table, and you still have to have beef with whoever's sitting in the seats anyway to sort of say, well, I'm allowed to sit here, which then you're just putting disabled people in an unsafe environment because they're now fighting with the cast of whatever cosplay crew is happening to be in that area. It's like, okay, so someone needs that seat and now they've got to fight for it. Cool, I guess. Like, swings and roundabouts. Like most people say, like the reports seem to be that the focus on MCN, there was some indie games, it was a lot smaller, and it was very focused on like tabletop content creation, TikTok, things like that, and like cosplay.
Yeah, that's most of the stuff I've seen as well, like the content creators, and like the one good thing I think with the indie games is Transfuser, which they get teams in to like develop games. There was only one from Wales this year, well, one from my neck of the woods this year. But yeah, from what like I've seen, people is like overcrowded, like overbooked.
Yes.
Which ain't really like accessible. Like you gotta leave space for people to actually be able to evacuate if something happened.
And the thing that gets me is it's not like this. There aren't things out there. So Gamescom, I was just for clarity and bias's sake, I was part of some of the discussions about this. I've been in meetings about this, which is Gamescom's accessibility. So like improving it, consulting, being like, hey, like, is this good? Does this work? Right? They literally have like accessibility for your Gamescom stand. So like a self-commitment for step-free access, like step-free access to stand space, and it's got a list of things to do to make your stand more accessible. So, when you think about the trickle down, you've got your venue, you've got your actual events company, then you've got the stands within it and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's good to have guidelines for people and to make their stands accessible. Xbox always has an accessible stand.
I was going to mention Xbox because they've set the bar. To put it bluntly.
Hey, he's got in.
Well, like there was a lot of talk about accessibility in events at GA-Conf for the news update on Monday that Ian did. So folks should watch that and get the document and have a look through it, especially about the accessibility of events. Exactly. So, because there are events like we went to Nothing Without Us, right, which was run by disabled people, about disabled people, for everybody. That event was perfection in terms of accessibility. Like when I needed a quiet space to just sort of disassociate, it was there. I didn't have to like beg and plead and sort of like give DNA to prove how disabled I am to get my partner in as a carer. Like there was no having to prove. Like I try and get this into people's heads. It's really difficult. There is a huge difference between accessibility and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Accessibility is allowing people to ask for what they need. Inclusion is they never had to ask. it was included already, you are then removing that thing of like, it's all well and good having accessibility, that's great. Like, you know, we have that at Limit Break. We are accessible because we allow you to ask for the things you need. But inclusion is where you don't have to ask for captions on in meetings or things like that. And like at an event, having priority seating is not something you should ever have to ask anyone for. It should be gated off. But it was the same at like at EGX last year. I noticed like anytime there was a sofa available that was supposed to be for a specific purpose, every man and his dog was sat on it because there's never enough seating. Like everything, the queues are hours long to play the games. I never play games at Commons anymore. I don't have the capacity that will, especially if I'm talking at an event, you've got no chance. All my energy is on talking and providing the service that I provide. I'm not going to be joining a queue with a lot of people where when I first used to go to cons, I used to have a bag of soap because I used to hand it out. A mate of mine used to take like literally Lynx Africa, right? Because my God, how in 20 years have we not figured this one out? It's a sensory hell on so many levels, including olfactory. Like
It's that
so
it is the cliche, isn't it, of a room full of gamers does tend to smell a bit.
And then you have the cosplayers who are hotter because they're in multiple layers of like Warbler and craft foam, which is not known for its breathability. Like it does seem like it was very, very overcrowded. I also saw reports again. This is not the first time it's happened. It happened last year where people without badges were able to get into the venue. There was I can't remember what the incident was last year, but people got in. I think it was Just Stop Oil or something.
Oh yeah, so they Just Stop Oil had badges.
Yeah, on the Tekken stage, when
they threw paint all over the Tekken stage, didn't they?
Yeah.
All right, so, you prefer Street Fighter? No need to do that.
Right? Just they can all exist in the same ecosystem. So, and that's the thing. So, like, you've got all these events and stuff, and like they should know by now, but there's no. The money is there for that. Well, I mean, this is the thing. The problem is I don't think the money is there anymore because the way people interact with things has changed. The way that the big games studios interact with their consumers has changed. And I think the cost versus the interaction is not as. I think they're just trying to recoup the losses over the pandemic, if I'm honest. As in, like, the events companies.
And the thing that winds me up is stop putting content creators on pedestals.
Mm-hmm.
Reports again I've seen from people on Twitter just saying waiting in a queue to get in the disabled queue, and they've just let the content creators in first, or just been walked past by about 20 content creators pushing past us with cameras because they think they're God's gift. You're not. Normally you're a twat, and I'm going to say it because I hate it. If you ever call me an influencer, I'm going to backhand you.
Yeah,
because
come backhand me through the screen, influencer.
He will find you. He knows where you live.
Yeah, and yes, they're doing a job, and they're not getting paid for it, so they're given a free ticket. Perfect. They've got a free ticket. You don't need to then give them free entry, like access, quick entry, a room to sit down and give that to people that actually fucking need it.
That prioritization is part of the sort of explaining to people. Like, I don't like using the term because I find that people tend to react to it really strongly, but having content creators placed higher than the access needs of disabled people is like a microaggression type thing. It's a thing that says you're not welcome here, but these people are.
You don't bring
and
value.
If you were as cool as these people, if you had everyone and I say this as someone who is forced to because of the accessibility role, you know, the consultancy and being a freelancer, I'm forced into content creation, right? Yeah. I don't like it. Content creation is so much work for so little payoff, but it is a requirement now at this point of my job. I hate it. And to have these people where that is their job is Twitter, their job is Twitch, there is no other, and to have that prioritised over the access needs, the legal rights of disabled people to have equal access to a venue of that size, it does tell you that you're not welcome. Yeah. And other things that tell you you're not welcome include the talks available. So last year, when we all talked, how many talks about being different to the expected were there at EGX for getting into games?
Well,
being in the
I
games
spoke on
industry,
3 of them, so
right? Like,
there's at least 3. Wobbles was on one.
I was on, so
Yeah.
mine was about accessibility design in video games. So mine wasn't even
Strike
technically.
was it Bukhari?
Mine
And,
was with Rebellion, and we discussed
yeah.
accessible design in video games. It wasn't even being different inside video games. It was a talk.
Yeah.
well, it kind of is because
yeah.
it is part of like. But this is what I mean. It's still part of like. I hesitate to use the call to arms, but it is diversity. It's
Yeah, of course it is.
diversity of talks, and it's showing that there's all sorts of different jobs out there. There's different kinds of people and different roles. That the one I was on, everyone on the panel was from a working class background and had different ways of getting in. You know, extremely diverse. This year, that has not. They have not maintained or doubled. Like my thing with progress is maintain or double it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to say you're making progress with diversity, you need to either maintain the levels you're at or double what you've got, because otherwise you're not actually doing anything. There was the no talk, like there was the one that RNAB talk about like accessibility this year. That was one talk that was there. But I did not see anything else. Nothing about. There was one on like different kinds of jobs you might not expect. But there was nothing on, you know, oh, by the way, are you poor? Are you from a poor background? Are you from outside of the main games hubs? Here's how you get into games.
I think that's another thing as well.
I saw about 8
You know?
I saw about 8 different panels on tips for content creators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
How to get the best angle.
Yeah.
from a sort of like with all the skills I pick up over the years and stuff like that, I get it from like a business development side of things. Like you go where the money is, but I'd argue that to a certain degree, content creation is just where the money looks like it is.
Yeah.
It's not actually as profitable. Like I can't remember, sorry, but I think Twitch is actually operating at a loss.
Twitch is
So
operating
what-
at a loss. It's always operated at a
So-
loss. Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me where the money is in content creation then.
It's
Like-
it's in sponsorships, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon next year I'd be surprised if there's not an OnlyFans booth there.
No,
Because-
that's my content creation. When I'm not feeling well, I have my camera on my hands. So it's the only hand stream because then I'm still working and doing stuff because my streams are obviously all co-working for the most
Link
part.
to Harry's only hands account in the dump.
Just like my delicately manicured big hands.
I did
hurling
try to
people.
set one up once, so I was just going to post pictures of ceiling fans. For you to verify your card, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
It's like
Yeah.
it's
Location
such-
as well. They need to spread out.
everything's
Develop,
I'll
obviously.
let Harriet
it's
talk
gonna
on this
be-
one, but everything's in the
Yeah.
south of the
Yeah.
country, and I'm in the
Yep.
east, it's like
Yes.
southeast. So I'm
in the
lucky.
west.
I can
In
get
the
to
very
everything.
West. But that's the thing. It's like, well, where I live currently in like the Midlands. It's easier to get to places like London. You know, logistically speaking, I'm not allowed to drive because apparently having seizures at the wheel makes me a worse driver than everyone here, which I'd argue against. Because you're not allowed to drive if you've had seizures in the last 12 months at least. Can't even learn. Very annoying.
Yeah, Haley
Um,
had pregnancy-related epilepsy, so she had to go 12 months without any lessons. And when she just started lessons, got pregnant, then had to start lessons
Oh.
again, and yeah,
Yeah.
then had to go
Yeah.
a year without a seizure on meds, and then they were like, right, now you can drive, and then yeah, so no the pain.
My choices are the only the only transport available that is flexible enough for disabled people is usually the trains, which is a dice roll as to how bad it's going to be. Passenger assist, I highly recommend for everybody who is disabled or doesn't consider themselves disabled but is neurodivergent, because you can get passenger assist just because you have sense, even if it's because of a sensory thing, and it makes your brain go
They
into static mode.
they don't ask for any kind of.
Exactly.
It's if you need passenger
Um,
assistance, you could be 80 years old and still fully able, but need someone to help with your bag off the train. To
Exactly.
being 16, it's your first time on a long journey distance train on your own, and you just need help. You don't
Exactly.
have to tick a box for National Rail assistance, which actually it's not reliable 3/4 of the time,
No.
or actually 50% of the time. I'll give them that. They've got a bit better over the last few years, but one of the good things is you don't have to prove it. You don't have to tick a box.
Yeah. Like, I'm not eligible for a disabled person's rail card anymore. And if you think I'm applying for benefits again, no thanks. I'm not going through PIP process again. If you think applying for a carer pass at EG-X is bad, it's almost as bad as applying for disability benefits that you are due as a disabled person.
We've all got stories about that.
Yeah. Which I'm not going to go into because that is a lot of trauma for people, and for some people, just thinking about it can send them into a panic. It's a vile process.
Like, the one thing I will say before we carry on is if you do get rejected, appeal. Because they are overly, they do overly reject. I appealed and I got like all my back pay for 18 months, I think. So if you're not worried, like, appeal.
Definitely. But yeah, like, it's stuff like that. Like, my only transport is the trains. I can get a coach, but there's no flexibility. So I have to leave and think. So then that affects my ability to network with people at events, because I have to either go off late or rush off early, depending on the stuff and depending on the train. Because even if I'm going to a place as part of, like, working with a client, I'll get that money back. But if it's just for an event, there's not a chance I'll get that back. So I will go for the advanced singles tickets, which mean that I have to be on a train at a certain time, in a certain seat, and that's it. That's if the seat reservations are there, because sometimes they turn them off because it's too busy, because they've had signal faults, which happens a lot on the main London to Sheffield line. And just like that, like, there's nothing. There are a few little events. Like, I know there's like game dev meet up in Nottingham, but it's drinks based, which isn't. Yes, there's non-alcoholic drinks, but it's not me having alcoholic drinks that I've got a problem with. It's I don't know people. Is the venue accessible? That I've got to do that research. I've got to figure out if I've got my stick with me, can I get into a venue? Are there going to be stairs? Am I going to be all right with the stairs? How drunk will I have to be to get up the stairs without paying? How much is it going to cost me to get that drunk before I even get to the event? You know, like, I'm having to do like 4D chess just to figure out if I can go to an event. It's so frustrating to always feel on the outside of everything in so many different ways. Some of it's because of being from my background, some of it's because of my gender presentation, and a lot of it is because people are like, oh, I didn't realise you were disabled. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Like, you think I craft this persona so everyone can know that I'm a cripple? Yes, correct. I do tell people that often now, but I didn't at first.
Yeah.
Do you think I wobble for the fun of it? Yeah.
I always joke about having pretty privilege, because basically people look at me and they go, well, you're not disabled. I'm like, ha, tell that to my hands. Tell that to my feet. Tell that to my joints. Tell that, when I explain, like, fibromyalgia to people, I'm like, imagine waking up every day feeling like you did CrossFit every day for a week with no breaks. That's what fibromyalgia is like at a 5. So everyone's pain level should be at 0, right? And then you feel, oh, I've got a headache, that's like a 3, right? Most fibro people are at a 5 on a normal. That's medicated. And then when they're having a flare, like, I'm currently in the sort of, like, beginnings of sort of flare, I'm at like a 7 or an 8, which is like, for a regular person, they're like, oh, you should probably go to hospital. Like, yeah, what are they going to do? Nothing. That's not how chronic pain works. It's a autoimmune brain problem. And trying to explain that to people. I think there's other people that have similar issues. Like, I think Molly has similar issues where people make assumptions that she can't, and I have the same thing where people are like, you can't. People are surprised at how speedy I am with my cane. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've got 3 legs now. Like, I'm sprinting around Middlesbrough. It was with Chris Leach and Nathan Dunton. We were at Animex for, like, on behalf of Impact, doing a talk about, like, being disabled in the games industry. And they're like, how are you so fast? And I'm like, bye.
And she's off.
Yeah. It's also a weapon, which is nice.
But, so, to end the segment on a more positive note, we'll talk about an event that all 3 of us attended this year in London, and it was organised by the amazing Molly, also known as Little Motac. nothing without us. It was an event organised for disabled people, by disabled people, and hosted by Chris Leach. And
Who we had on the last
he
podcast.
was on the last podcast. And it was a great day. Like, it was done well, organised well, accessible. There was Xbox Rebellion, Playground Games, Bethesda.
Yeah, being at that event was kind of like, I don't know if people have seen. I've seen Avengers Endgame when like they all come through the portals.
It
like
did
that.
feel a lot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that, but for like the accessibility community. It was like everyone together, and
It was such a good day. We had everyone and anyone that was there from the accessibility community, the accessibility space. It was well organised, great location, and it was just nice. It was talks about everything and anything to do with accessibility, disabled representation, disabled, even down to sex life and being disabled. There was everything and anything being discussed at the event, wasn't there? And it was just good. And I can't describe it any other way than good.
I think it's important to. I think it was innovative because I think the majority of events that are run on behalf of disabled people for disabled people often don't have disabled people involved in a primary. They might be like, oh, well, we spoke to disabled people and they want this. It's like, no, they don't. You speak to one disabled person, congrats. That's like speaking to one person on a street. You don't know what the entire street wants just by speaking to one person.
kind of like Family Fortunes. We asked 100 people.
Every disabled event you see most of, like 90% of the time, is come here and look at mobility scooters, look at our medical beds, look at our toilets that mean you don't have to sit down. And it's not.
I want one of them.
I'm just lazy.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's like, we're not just here to. We don't want to just live. We want to. Like, we're not here to just live. We want to experience life like everyone else. We want.
We're here to thrive, not survive.
Exactly that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And a lot of events are based around freaking surviving. Like I've said, it's toilets, it's beds, it's
Get on a t-shirt.
mobilities. Whereas, like you've said, it was an event that was organised by people that want to play games as disabled people, and it was an event about gaming.
I will say the disability community can get me on board if they give me someone with tank tracks and surface to air missiles. Then I'll be interested in your mobility scooters. If it's more like a mobility tank, sign me up.
Wonder Goss Putin over there.
No, I'm not.
How long
here
that
to,
take?
it's just listen. I will make your venue step-free access at any cost.
Even if it
Doesn't mean
requires
just
arms.
blasting holes in the side of buildings, being like, I'll get in through the parking garage. But this is the thing, right? Mobility aids are too clinical. We should make them fun, right?
Yeah.
It's not a medical device, it's a mobility aid.
Make canes that look like lightsabers.
Yeah. I want one of them.
Ian now has the idea to paint this cane.
I've just, don't. Let's move on to the next segment. Harriet's now going to take over the pod for 10-15 minutes as we move on to Guess This Mess. Hello everybody and welcome back to put it bluntly. We are on the final segment of today's episode where Harriet will be taking over and putting mine and Cameron's gaming knowledge to the test. So we shall now hand over to the wonderful Harriet.
I'm now winning, as you saw last week.
Smug.
Well, I think I'm gonna really challenge you on these ones, because some of them are obscure. So
I deal with obscure.
I'm so old. So number one, a fantasy NBA player enters a dream future past world to tag along with a nun and her entourage to kill God.
I can't remember the name of it. Shaq Fu?
No.
Pong? You did say old.
He's a fantasy basketball player, really. kind of.
No, I'm out.
Come on, don't give up our easy.
I've never heard of a
fine with
game
it.
that involves a nun killing God. So,
Like I say, you said badly explained. Okay,
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
a dream fantasy past, future past. No,
Yeah.
oh,
You're in
I'm
the
never
future, but
getting it,
you're
mate.
also in the past. But it's also a dream. And yeah, also the main character, the basketball player, does fall in love with the nun.
That's standard.
How many mushrooms did you take before you came up with this game?
Hey, I played this game a lot. It's actually iconic. There are major, huge memes of this game that are often cited to this day. One of the memes from this game is somebody laughing.
No.
Nah, go on. I give up.
It's Final Fantasy X.
Oh, when the laugh, yeah, when he does the laugh.
Yeah. Because the main character is basically
basketball,
he plays a fantasy
the underwater
Oh, he
one.
plays the
Yeah.
basketball game.
Blitzball, yeah.
Blitzball, yeah.
Blitzball, that's one.
I loved Blitzball. Was a great mini game inside the game.
It really was.
That's better than most.
And yeah.
The Blitzball was better than most sports games, ironically enough.
I used none deliberately because if I'd have said anything else, it would have been easier.
Yeah. To be fair, if you had it
To kill
underwater.
God.
Yeah, if you said underwater basketball, I'd have probably got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you ready for number 2? This is gonna be harder.
You say that now, like when I was getting extremely.
Yeah.
Go on.
2 random kids get plagued with nightmares, get possessed by a jester to defeat a wizard. The game also features a museum made of cloth.
Could we get an era?
Sort of PS1 era, that kind of thing, like the late 90s, early 00s, that kind of. Actually, yeah, just late 90s. And it's on a console most people did not have in the West. It was not as popular over here. 2 random kids plagued with nightmares get possessed by a jester to defeat a wizard.
I got it. 40 winks.
What? Nope.
Oh, I thought they had it.
So you're close though.
Yeah.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, it's the game Nights into Dreams. Sega
Nights
Saturn.
into Dreams. I knew it was something because I watch a channel and called Triple Jump, and they stream like all different weird games on Halloween, not PS1 version ones. And they're the 2. I can't remember the name of it. Because it's like you go collecting stuff in like the
Yes.
yeah.
They had a special controller for the Saturn for it that had one of the first analog sticks ever, basically.
Yeah, and if you played on Christmas Day, it was all snowy and.
There was actually a special edition of the game, which is one of my favorite version of it, called Christmas Nights, where it's just the Christmas levels.
Yeah.
And I played that so much when I was a kid, like so much. I will find emulators to play it now because it's just perfection at Christmas.
I think me and the guests are now drawing Wobbles.
Yeah, you are.
Fun one.
Right,
One of us.
I've got one more. Right.
Yep.
A sentient skeleton fights an evil philosopher by playing the blues.
Medieval?
No. There's 2 parts of the title of the game, and the first part is Mr.
Mr. Pac-Man.
Mr. Saxophone Boy.
Go
on then.
It's Mr. Bones. It is a very obscure game on the Sega Saturn that features
Wobbles like street
I've
researching.
seen the fucking cover. I know.
Yeah.
I am.
Because I posted it on BlizzCon.
Yeah.
It's one of the best games I've ever played. It was my late dad's one of his favourite games. It literally features a thing where you do a blues guitar solo to convert other skeletons to be sentient and good.
Yeah. The cover is fucking incredible. That brings us to the end of the episode. We were both very excited to get you on, Harriet, because even though we do give each other abuse on social media, I do have a lot of time for you. You are such a positive person inside the space, which is nice. It's needed a lot. You try and keep your smile on at all times, and you make everyone around you laugh, to say the least. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I've been the Wobbly Gamer, and that's been episode 13 of To Put It Bluntly.
I'm Cameron Keywood, and I'm also here.
Yeah, I've been Harriet, and it's fucking raw.